We
Sounds
will
good.
start by letting you introduce yourself, maybe your undergraduate degree, your graduate degree, and where you're at now.
Yeah, yeah. I am a graduate of Concordia in St. Paul of 2018, where I earned my bachelor's degree in sport and exercise psychology with, I think, a minor in psychology. And then following my time at Concordia, I went to Minnesota State University in Mankato to get my master's degree in sport and exercise psychology. And along that time, I also picked up an additional master's degree in mental health counseling from Mankato. So my whole gist and jam is about focusing on athletes and the mind, really, just focusing on the spectrum along wellness, and then easing into performance and kind of helping them navigate that gray area, um, which has been a really fun and exciting opportunity to help athletes kind of discover themselves both as the athlete but also as the person. And yeah, it's just been a really rewarding experience. Along my time at Concordia, I did an internship with the Duluth Huskies Northwoods League baseball team as a mental performance intern. And then in Mankato, I did a similar internship with the Mankato Moondogs. With both internships really focused on helping collegiate baseball players enhance their mindset and basically think more effectively to enhance performance. Um, and so that's kind of my main focus as a career. And right now, I'm busy looking into different professions across the field, and yeah, it's been fun exploring what's out there.
Great. Thanks, Tanner. When you chose Concordia and came here, did you know right away that you were thinking about sport and exercise psychology, or how did you stumble upon that? Because that's not a huge major of ours. We have a few students every year, but it's not necessarily as highlighted as sport management or exercise science. So, what sent you down kind of that fork in the road?
Yeah, I think for me, I always knew. I guess I'll take a step back. I was never a good athlete as a kid, but I knew that I could hang around my friends who are certainly faster, stronger, more athletically gifted. But I was able to, make some noise around them, and I figured, I think there's this something, this mind and performance that needs to be dug into a little more. Um, and so yeah, I was really interested in it. I reached out to people at Premier Sports Psychology, chatted with them, chatted with a bunch of people within baseball and mental performance, and I figured that hey, this is really interesting, and I feel really empowered and passionate about it. Um, and so I did some digging. This is all during my time in high school. I had basically looked up sports psychology, universities, Twin Cities, and lo and behold, Concordia is like the only undergraduate program in, I mean, practically the Midwest. I haven't really
Hmm.
looked in Chicago, but if you're looking Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, Concordia is the place to be. Um, and so that really made my college decision pretty simple. I went to Concordia and didn't really know what to expect, but I was absolutely blown away by the supportive faculty, the willingness for them to, let me lead the way, and they kind of supported me as needed. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, that's how I found Concordia in this major. So yeah, it worked out really well for me.
And you mentioned that you did a little legwork on your end, communicating with and seeking out not only internships, but maybe some professional shadowing opportunities or
Yeah.
opportunities within the area. If there were a student thinking about this but didn't know, am I interested in high school or college or professional or what have you seen even in your time in the last, 5, 6, 7 years about where sports psychology professionals have been able to plug in and how might that look different if we're talking youth compared to college sports compared to professional sports?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good question because I think um oftentimes we'll read articles about the mental performance coaches or sports psychologists who work with, our favorite athletes and teams. And that was certainly me who said, "Oh yeah, that's cool. I want to do that." But like any outstanding professional, there's years of hard work that go into getting to that, to work with your favorite athlete or your favorite team and to be at the Olympics. And so there's certainly levels to the, you have to work your way up, which with any profession. But I've seen it's quite popular for students to, upon graduating with their master's degree in sports psychology, go work with the military, um, which is extremely popular. I was just looking before the interview, and there's about 20 or so positions that are looking for all across the country.
Oh, you're kidding.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so very, very cool opportunity to work with the Air Force, Navy, which were all performers in a way.
Hmm.
No, that's very, very cool. And then there's also positions within baseball that are quite popular. But as you get into basketball, football, a little less popular. But I think you also see positions in health coaching, life coaching, different routes like that. So, as much as we want to look at the sport lens, there's certainly a lot of opportunities within um, non-sporting populations that certainly need to be explored further.
Right. I totally agree. Thinking about it as a person who's been a fitness professional with the community myself, the other 95% of the people who either wish they were athletes, right, like us, or
Mhm.
uh, have their own exercise goals doesn't mean that there aren't still mental obstacles and things that get in the way of them, having a holistic and healthy lifestyle. You don't have to be a professional sports person to be able to utilize the services of both, on your end, mental health professional and sports psychology, or really kind of the psychology of a healthy life, I guess.
Essentially, yeah,
Yeah.
and I should also note that it's becoming increasingly more popular for like Fortune 500 businesses to bring on a mental performance coach or different executives to have almost like a mental performance consultant with them to help manage those big corporations and big decisions. So there's certainly a lot of different angles that you can go with a degree. But going back to your point of youth athletics, I've seen that it's increasingly popular for young graduates to get lots of experience working with middle school, high school, and even some college teams. And I think that's the way to go. It's the place to kind of work on your skills. And although you might graduate from school, there's certainly still a lot to learn. And that's certainly where I think I would consider myself at that point as I look into the profession, look into working with some of those uh, higher scale populations. I definitely know that it's increasingly important to work with those college, youth, and high school teams to make sure that, hey, I am ready for those larger populations and clients. But yeah, those high school and youth teams are where you hammer the skills. That's for sure.
Yeah, totally. And let's say there's somebody as yourself who knows you have the skills, you're ready to go. But as people have maybe seen, schools can be slow to adopt things. Number one, it can be budget, right? Number two, it can be like, is this legit? Is this a legit science? Um, what would you say to a young professional, maybe somebody who's just graduating or somebody who's thinking about an internship, and you were willing to do the work? You made some cold calls, right? You were willing to say, like, let me shadow you, let me watch. But
Mhm.
how do you, and I don't want to use the word convince because we shouldn't convince people that they need some mental skills training, but how do you open up maybe the mind of somebody who maybe had dismissed it in the past, like youth or middle school or high schoolers who have said, well, we've never had the money or that type of position before. What do you
Yeah,
tell them is going to be the benefits and the outcomes of bringing in a, a skilled professional who can help their team?
yeah. That's kind of the golden question in the profession because it's if you look at strength and conditioning, it's you can kind of provide like X's and O's in a specific program of if you do this for 6 weeks, you will see these results or similar
Right.
to these results. To where mental skills is certainly a much more abstract kind of strength and conditioning for the mind. Um, and so it is hard, but I think for me, I lean on a lot of the coach's previous experience of I'm guessing they were probably an athlete and discussing with them how they viewed the mindset and what is like how did it impact them or how do they see it's impacting their athletes or if it's not impacting their athletes right now how can they like foresee it happening or we're digging into more of that what has happened in the past to now you know how can we use these skills that I can provide to your athletes and your teams now to um whether it be a preventative measure or you know helping as the moment is but it's
Right.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but I would say it's much more conversational with coaches and athletes and rather assessing needs and kind of taking what I know and how can I help those needs
Hmm.
rather than know, displaying facts or figures because that's I wish I could, but that's not really where the field is at.
Sure, sure. And mental skills professionals can be in all sorts of areas: confidence, goal setting, team cohesion, team dynamics, anxiety, arousal, communication.
Mhm.
What have you, from research that you've been reading or trends that you've been seeing with your own experiences, are there new pockets of areas that people are really, adopting these ideas from? So maybe at first it was, one-on-one kind of psychological skills training with athletes, but have you seen some evolution of what teams are hoping for when they have somebody on staff or
Yeah,
contracting with somebody?
one popular dynamic that I've seen a lot with coaches and teams has been mindfulness, and it's kind of I think sometimes coaches and athletes want it to be some big, sexy, and fun idea to where it's
Right.
really just staying in the moment. Um, and there's certainly ways we can do that of like breathing techniques, cue words, cue actions, um, just a lot of different things that we can use to get back to the present moment. But I've seen a lot of coaches and athletes that are really interested in mindfulness because it's kind of I would say certainly a catchword right now within athletics and mental performance. So yeah, I would say that's certainly one of the more up and coming,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to call it a mental skill,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I've seen over the past few years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's come to us from the media, right? And I'm also just other mindfulness has been a buzzword the last few years about people being mindful in their decision making and choices and their careers and how they're spending their life. So of course that's going to trickle down to the sports and fitness arena as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite concept that you like to work with teams or individuals? Like, is there something that you're like, ooh, I really hope they have this problem, so they have to ask me to come and work with them. Is there something that really gets you your number one passion?
I think I'm a sucker for some good imagery. I've used that a lot in my even dating back to Concordia as a student. I used a lot of imagery and getting rid of pre-presentation anxiety, pre-test anxiety.
Hmm.
Um, it helped me prepare for the moment. So when I got to the moment, I had already kind of seen a little bit of what that experience was going to be like. And so for me, when coaches bring up imagery, I always get really excited because I think there's a lot of different ways we can implement it. And I think it also incorporates dynamics of breathing and mindfulness and just being present. And so I would say imagery is kind of my little baby in terms of that. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, totally. When you think, I'm thinking back to students who might say like, gosh, Tanner, what the things that Tanner has thought about sound really exciting to me. If you're thinking about launching your own business or getting your show on the road, do you think that students should think about one or two aspects? Like, should they bundle themselves as a professional? Should they,
Mhm.
um, focus on like, oh, it's going to be anxiety or injury recovery or team cohesion, or should they be more of a generalist? Or what have you seen with any peers or people in the industry? Are they specializing, or are they
Yeah,
specializing in a certain level of performance? Or
I would say,
if people are feeling stuck, what might be a move for them?
yeah, I guess I've always seen professionals, they start out at kind of that general basis. And then the way I've seen it is as people go into their field, go into their profession, oftentimes that interest of, um, say you're a mental performance expert, but you're really interested in the dynamic of sleep. They might go into the go get your undergraduate degree, go get your master's degree, and work in the field as kind of that basis mental skills coach. But then as your profession kind of develops over time and you get more experience, I've seen it where that major interest of sleep will kind of incorporate itself into different works of your
Sure.
practice. And then as you continue to get more experience with sleep and mental skills or sleep and recovery, that kind of that main interest or specialty kind of comes out on its own.
Hmm.
Um, that's kind of the way I've seen things.
Okay. And would you say or feel like there are opportunities if there are people who want to be more research based, they can be there. If they want to be an independent contractor and, have their own business or work on a contractual basis, that works. They can be hired part-time or full-time within a company. Like what might be some different avenues for people who again maybe don't they are excited about this, but they're like, well, it does come down to making a living, right, and being passionate about
Yes.
what you do. So what have you seen for options that way?
I've seen a lot of the applied work. Um, and I would say typically I've seen the route of a mental skills professional go along the um, graduating with degrees, and then you go into more the health coaching lens or military, as they're much more willing to hire someone fresh out of college.
Sure.
And then you use those, what if it's military, you're getting hours, gaining experience, which looks very nice on a resume and allows you to go work in baseball or whatever sport or population you want to work with. And health coaching also allows you to work on those skills, earn a living. But I've seen a lot of coaches that will, along with their full time job, will do part-time work on the side, whether it be working with a specific university's team or
Mm-hmm.
a few high schools or middle schools here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one, to make some extra money, but also to gain that experience that you can put on your resume. And then when you want to go to that higher level organization and make your pitch, you do have those skills outside of just what you did in graduate school. So I'd say those are the two main routes that I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing in the field. Um, And then once you go off those routes, it's a lot of, the world is your oyster in a way, because like we said, everyone's a performer.
Right.
And once you have those experiences postgraduate, you're able to make a much stronger pitch or one that's more likely to catch the attention of your clients.
Yeah. Who are some people we should be paying attention to in the industry, or periodicals that you read, or influencers, or
Yeah.
what are some what are some buzzwords and hot topics that have been floating around the last couple of years?
A few people that I know have helped me a lot. Um, Let me take a moment to think here.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, I have a big background in baseball, so a lot of the people that I'm connected to are in baseball. But even outside of baseball, Zach Brandon with the Arizona Diamondbacks is very popular on social media. Um, Always putting his ideas out there, engaging with people. So on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it might be, he's a great person to kind of get your own creative juices flowing. Dr. Duncan Simpson from IMG Academy, another great individual to that's always posting stuff, publishing stuff, whether it be research or on Twitter. Justin Sua has a podcast that's great. He works with the Tampa Bay Rays baseball organization. He's been around NFL, and um, those are three people that come to mind. But if you want to go more different route, Michael Gervais, he's based in Seattle, and he does a lot of interesting work. And he's a little more, I'll say, does his own thing, but he's very good at his own way. And if you want to get more local, Premier Sports Psychology is a great resource. They're a private practice in, I want to say, Eden Prairie. And while they work with a lot of the major teams within the Twin Cities, but they also have they're very open to sharing what they know, publishing research. They're doing some really interesting stuff on ADHD and athletic performance right now. Um, I would say those are some of the. I'll say Dr. Cinder Krampoff is another popular one within the Twin Cities. And she was my supervisor in Mankato, so got to show some love to her.
Hmm.
But yeah, those are some resources that I've found helpful to me in my path.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. And like you said, if you just need a little spark or you want to know, because regardless of your field, it is important to know what the latest research is, what's up and coming, because you definitely don't want to be caught flat-footed, right? If somebody would ask you about something and then you're like, I haven't seen that yet, or I haven't heard of that. It is important to stay relevant and stay up to date on any trends and things that are coming through, regardless of your industry.
Yeah.
So that being said, staying up on trends and fads, what is something that you have learned that you maybe didn't get told or wish you would have heard earlier or have learned for yourself that maybe can't be explained ahead of time, but that you just have to learn and grow through that? But what's something, a few years out of school now that you would go back and tell your sophomore year self?
Yeah, I would learn a really good elevator pitch.
Mm,
Um, and those are certainly not the most fun thing to learn and practice. But for me, I found it very helpful to when there is just an informal setting and you have to meet with a coach that you're able to, brush up elbows and say, hey coach, I'm Tanner Peterson. Here's what I do, here's what I know, here's how I can help. And sure, coach might still say, no, I'm good with the mental skill services. But having a good elevator pitch is something that I've found really helpful, and I wish I would have practiced it and developed it a lot earlier in my career. So I would certainly say, and with that, learning how to pitch yourself. Um, because I have had experiences where I'm face to face with ADs and they ask me a question and I kind of draw a blank stare and then the rambling starts. And I wish I would have practiced that a bit more. So being willing to, even whether it be just doing a Zoom call by yourself and recording it and watching it back and seeing what was good, what wasn't good. Um, I would say that's been helpful for me. So yeah, that whole pitch, whether it be over Zoom or over a 10-second spiel, that's very important.
yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. Before we close, do you have any other thoughts that, again, you would tell current students either thinking about sports psychology or things that you've learned as you've gone along the way, and or helpful hints for somebody who's either debating between majors or maybe has already committed to this but is wondering like, okay, well, what's going to come after graduation?
um, I guess a few quick things. Look into the Association of Applied Sports Psychology. Um, very the annual conference. It's a very prominent um, association within the field. With that, I would also dig into the Certified Mental Performance Consultant certification that's associated with the ASP conference and is really important if you want to work with professional teams or high level organizations. That's something that you'll see on almost, well, I shouldn't say every, but a lot of high ranking job listings. Um, and then networking, that was massive for me. And I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for that. Um, I've met so many great people. And as I've gotten older, I've gone much more away from asking like the scripted questions. But I found having an informal conversation I've created a lot deeper connections than just asking 10 questions that I wrote yesterday to a professional. It shows a lot more personality if we do it that way. And then I would think about graduate school. Um, I knew coming in that I wanted to go to graduate school, but I think as I've graduated, the sports psychology lens is certainly a really competitive field, and it's growing, but it's still competitive. So if you are in the uh, sports psych program at Concordia, I would really look into some graduate programs, whether it be at North Texas, Mankato, Ball State, Denver has a great program. Um, there's a handful of other ones, California, Fullerton, but just kind of exploring that lens and um, seeing what's right for you. Because I know my graduate experience drastically shifted um, my experience from Concordia to Mankato. Both were good, but it was just a lot of development and focusing on the sports psych lens rather than just having a major.
Mhm.
So if I had anything to add, I would say those are a few of the dynamics that I wish I would have explored more at CSP.